up, guys? Welcome back to the Drone Camps channel. We have something new from Diatone on the bench today, and we're going to fly this. We're going to talk about the components on here. We're going to talk about the price point and what the options are for this one. So we're just going to jump right into this. This one is the analog version, and it does have the 6S motors on here. There's a 6S version and a 4S version. They're both the same price, $259.99 without the receiver. If you want to add TBS Crossfire, that's going to get you up to around $289 for that setup. And that's bind and fly. That means you have to have a radio and a battery and a charger outside of getting this quad, but it's pre-built. It has a factory tune on here, which is pretty good. And in this review, we're going to show you the camera footage coming from my Skyzones, and I have them back there in a Fat Shark case. Go figure. But we're going to show you that footage. We're going to show you how it flies, how it freestyles, and most importantly, how durable this is when it crashes. So if you guys are looking for like an ultra durable bind and fly that's under $300 right now, this is a good deal because I prefer this 4-inch propeller quad over the 3.5-inch that have been coming out recently. We've been flying 3.5-inch. There's all kinds of versions of them out there. There's the Baby Hawk HD. There is the Diatone 3.5, and now there is the F4. And between these two props, I prefer the 4-inch over the 3.5. The 3.5 is pretty fast, but I feel like the 4-inch has a little more forgiveness in the high end of the throttle, and it gives you a little more float coming back around from those big maneuvers. So yeah, just a little more power and throttle in these motors. So I would go for the 6S version because you have all that top end power at the high end of the throttle. If you're coming back around from a big maneuver, you can save yourself a lot better. And it's going to be faster on 6S, and you might have actually a little longer flight time. So TBS Crossfire Nano RX1, that's the one I'd go for. But if you don't want to get it with a receiver and you want to add like a Taranis XM Plus on it and run, say, something like your T16 in D16 mode, you can do that for $259 plus the price of a pretty cheap FR Sky XM Plus antenna. I was also running my Firefly X on here, and I crashed this into the concrete today, and I hit a curb. And the good news is that I did a durability test on the Firefly X, and this camera is getting 4K video with SD card support. I do recommend this over top of the Peanut. Right now, I will say that I haven't tested the Peanut, but if I was going to fly on any given day, I would grab this first because it has a mount that comes with two options on the mount. It comes with the larger mount for the GoPro size mounts on any quad, and it comes with the smaller mount, so you can put it on smaller size quads like this one here from Beta FPV. So it has that little mount there and this mount that comes on the top here. So in that durability test, I crashed into a concrete curb, and the camera took a hit right here. You can see it did not break, which is really good news. There are a lot of cameras out there that are decased that would have broken to pieces. The Gep RC, one of my favorite high-end decased GoPro Hero 8, it's $550, but this thing hit the curb and it was exposed in this. It was this direction here, and it broke the bottom of this base off. So I can still use it on the smaller quads, but the larger GoPro mount broke off the top of this quad. And I was using a Diatone mount to do that, but I have to say that the durability report coming back from several weeks of flying the Firefly X is super good. So if you're going to pick up one of these, you should grab one down at the link below before these guys sell out. And again, I prefer the SD card support over top of something like the Peanut or the Go Tube, just because, well, I have expandable memory in this setup, so I can put up to a 512 gigabyte SD card in the Firefly X. And I think the video looks decent. It's not as good as the Hero 8, but then again, not all of us are willing to put down $550 that I can just smash into the concrete. So this is highly recommended, but we're gonna go out and fly this now. When I had my crash into the curb, guys, the problem is that the camera turned off because the battery came clean off the quad, and I lost the video. I'm not sure I had the video of that crash. If I can find it, I'll put it in this flight test. But I did a lot of smackdowns with this quad, and if you are a beginner, I would actually recommend this for a beginner. Outside of saying have flown like your first like micro quads around the house, if you're looking to get outside and do some real ripping, start out with the 4S or the 6S one if you're a beginner, because this is kind of a beater quad too, and it just flies really, really well. So let's go ahead outside now, and let's do some analog FPV flight test with the Roma F4, 4-inch version, 6S and 4S. You can fly it on either one, by the way. If you get the 6S version, you can fly 4S or 6S batteries, no problem. Let's do some ripping, guys. Here we go.
Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys. It sound right, boys. It sound right, boys. It sound right, boy.
All right, guys, welcome back from the flight test. That was pretty fun, and I have to say that this quad survived my flight test. That's a good quad. You know what that means? That means that if you're a beginner and you watch one of my reviews, a lot of times you see that I kind of fly stupid fast, and I kind of fly it like I stole it. So that means that I'm flying like a crazy man, high on the throttle. I'm just going for stuff. I'm just trying power loop after power loop, and really just seeing what the performance of the power system will do on a quad. And I'm not one of those reviewers that kind of pussyfoots around in the baseball field. I actually like to just go for it, and sometimes I've sawed tree branches off of trees. You guys have seen some of my reviews where I just cut right through a tree branch and keep going. I actually throttle up when I hit a tree branch instead of throttling down. It's kind of stupid, but I try to fly out of it, fly through it, and sometimes just to see what happens. Now, this one, in the case of hitting a tree branch, when I did a power that came back down into a tree, and I hit a tree branch, and I kind of tried to, level out the quad in acro and fly out of it, which I did not. I flew into the street and hit a curb. And the good thing about this is that this quad, it took a really hard hit on the concrete. So, You know, if you are a beginner, I think this frame is pretty good as far as durability factor goes, because it looks around a 4.5 to 5 mil frame, unibody. Again, it has that long body frame design, so you can run a full-size GoPro on here with a battery. You could run like a 4S 850 on here if you want. It has an XT60 back here that's embedded in this TPU mount in the back. We've got our sort of medium-size antenna coming off the back. It has enough clearance from the battery, which I also like. It sticks up above the battery. And you can run up to like a 4S or a 6S 1550. Well, 4S 1550 would be the biggest battery I put on here. You can even fly 4S on this 6S version with these motors. It also comes with trapdoors. So you have these little trapdoors. They kind of stick out on the side to give the flight controller and the wiring some room here. I've seen this type of trapdoors on other Diatone quads, which is kind of nice. No other company out there is doing these trapdoors. But one thing I got to report about the trapdoor, might be a negative about this one, is that when I did have one crash, this popped off, and I tried to turtle mode, and I flipped back over, but when I powered up again, this trapdoor had popped open during the crash, and it broke a prop. So that's one thing to think about there. You could also just take these trapdoors off and fly it traditionally, how we fly quads, with exposed flight controller. But if you want to have everything protected in here, you could just leave the trapdoors on, if that makes you feel better. I also have my receiver in here, and again, this is the Diatone AIO F411 flight controller with 35 amp ESCs, and it's 4S and 6S capable, but if you get the 4S version, you're going to get 4200 kV motors for 4S. If you get the 6S version, you're going to get the 2200s. So these are the Toka series. They have 3 bolts on the bottom, and they have that larger motor stem on here, and the traditional sort of self-locking nut there. And I kind of prefer this one over top of like the 2-bolt configuration that a lot of the 3-inch props have. This is just nice. It's more like convenient out in the field if you have to switch out a prop. If you do break a prop, you just grab your wrench, take that off, and you're back up in the air. So I think these motors actually look really nice. I was joking in the field the other day when the guys were there, and I was like, man, these are some nice wheels. 2203.5, 2200 kV. Don't those look nice? I mean, gold interior there with the green accent looks really cool. And the stator inside looks nice, and the coils look nice and thick in there. That means it's a nice high quality copper coils. And again, they did wire covers over top of them, so when I crashed through the trees, these didn't break off. Looks like that one might have moved a little bit, but I've had other crashes where these completely break off, and this time they didn't. And it will save the wires going to the ESC, which is nice. But again, the aircraft aluminum up front, we've got that Runcam Phoenix on the front here as well. That is a Phoenix 2. And it's a really nice analog camera, I think. One thing about this design is that I feel like they should have taken this piece of carbon out right here. It gives you some extra protection for the camera, but the problem for that is when I went to put my Diatone mount on for my Firefly, it kind of wouldn't go underneath. It was not able to get underneath here for mounting that mount, but I was able to get it on there with a couple screws up front, just leave the back up. And I have to say, I ran this camera, but I had a problem during one of my crashes when I flew across the street and hit the curb with this quad. It broke the top of the mount for the Firefly X. Now, that was a true durability test for the Firefly X. So if you're watching this review and you've already watched my review, my shootout of all of the different D-case cameras, and this one is kind of like the budget choice, it's $150 for 4K at 60 frames per second. That's what we all want to record when we're flying FPV videos. 60 frames per second makes the video look great, and it doesn't have a lot of stutter because these are moving at really high speeds. So this is the kind of camera you want, but it's much better priced than the Gep RC Hero 8 at $550. So I feel like the video on this one's acceptable, but I feel like they also need to make a TPU mount for the Firefly X. If you could find that and source that, that's the way to go. But I love this mount because it survived hitting a curb. Now this is the damage that I got when I hit a curb with this camera. Other guys have been flying the Gap RC Hero 8 and they've broke those, and that's a $550 break. If you smash one of those, that would be just terrible. I'm even scared to crash mine. I know Bardwell crashed his and broke his, and it can take a pretty good hit, Firefly X, and you can see it broke the top of this mount off. And I feel like this is TPU. It might have bent, but it also kind of gave a little bit in the crash. So in a way, it might have been less hard on the camera since this gave instead of this. So something has to give in the crash, and that's really important. So I also had the extra mount on the bottom for the smaller point, so you can attach it to micro quads. So this is pretty cool that this mount actually comes with two types of mounting harnesses. So for full-size GoPro mount, that would fit the 4-inch over here, and the smaller for the micros. So now I can still use that mount on my smaller quads, but now I'm gonna need a new mount if I want to mount it to my larger mount setup for the GoPro size. But this camera is great so far. And I think this one, combination wise, if you got this camera and this setup, that'd be a nice freestyle setup. And as long as you're not crashing into the concrete, you're probably gonna be fine. I kind of wish this one had a little larger VTX on here. This one does have a smaller VTX, and let me just double check on the specs for you guys on the VTX. That's the Mamba TX500, so it will go up to 500 milliwatt. Recently, I reviewed one of the Diatone quads that has the Mamba 1W. That's 1 watt up to 1,000 milliwatts, so that would be crazy, crazy, crazy nice. And you can go miles out on 1,000 milliwatt, but you can see that's only a half-size VTX with a UFL connector here. It comes back around, and if you buy this quad, I would move this cable away from that VBAC cable going back here. You don't really want your VTX antenna cable right next to on top of the power. That's just not going to be a good thing for you. But I also like that even though this is on a tiny bit of tilt, it's not as much as like the Evoke, where they had theirs on the iFlight quad, the Nazgul Evoke. It's almost tilted back like this. This one lets you still plug in the battery without having to have a super long battery. And this quad body is shorter, so you have no problem with the length of the battery cable reaching the XT60 in the back. So a really nice high quality design, and under 300 bucks. So I think this is one to look out for. And honestly, if you're looking for something super, super durable and fun to fly, 4-inch is the way to go for like a beginner freestyle or intermediate. Like there's some really good bind and flies out there right now in 2021. So you can check out the link down below for this one, which I highly recommend, and the Firefly X camera. This is the X Lite, and it's just fantastic for me so far. I'm loving the footage, and I'm loving the fact that I'm not tied down to onboard storage like the Peanut versus having SD card support. This is just easy to pop out, put in the computer, and upload to Facebook or YouTube and edit your videos. So super cool. Comment on this video as well, because we're still going with that giveaway, the Fimi X8 coming up soon. I've been kind of pushing it out to the end of the month so that we can start our October giveaway. What's going to be next? What should I give away next, guys? Make some comments down below and get entered to win. And as always, give us a like and subscribe on the channel. Guys, take care.